Titanic Talk with Nelson and Alexandra Boyd. Here we feature stories from the independent documentary Ship of Dreams Titanic movie diaries and everything else to do with the iconic ship. From James Cameron's epic groundbreaking movie to the history and legacy of Titanic herself. Join us and our special guests as we continue the 25th anniversary celebrations of Titanic. This is your first-class ticket to everything aboard the Ship of Dreams.
I'm Nelson and by now you know that I am a self-confessed Titaniac, which means anything relating to the Titanic is of interest to me, as I suspect it is to you, which is why you have tuned into this episode of Titanic Talk. And yes, I'm Nelson coming to you from New York City, but on the other side of America is my good friend, co-host, colleague, Alexandra Boyd, the filmmaker behind Ship of Dreams, Titanic movie diaries. And if you thought Jack and Rose were a love story, Alexandra has found another one to rival that beautiful relationship, and they are featured in her documentary. And today we'll get a little extra knowledge about the two of them and why they're Titaniacs as well. Take it away, Alexandra.
Well, yes, I'm going to introduce you to you Roberto and Roelof. Oh, have I said it right? Yes, I said it right. Thank goodness. Who are going to tell us a little bit about how they met. And of course, we all know by now that they met because of Titanic. And I met them because I was shooting the documentary, a little segment for the documentary at the Royal Albert Hall that was having a live performance of James Horner's score to a screening of the movie, which I know is a very exciting thing to experience. And I had gone there to see Dale and Ilka. I was going to surprise Ilka. Dale knew I was going to be there. And I didn't know that Roberto and Roelof were going to be there too. And so it was a bonus Titaniac meetup. Welcome to Titanic Talk. Please, Roberto, you kick us off and tell us just a little bit about your Titanic journey.
Well, my Titanic journey with this man right here.
Yes.
Yes, this man. We met 8 years ago, so we are 8 years together already because of Titanic, of course. And a short story was like he was on a Facebook group about Titanic and me too. He shared a picture that he was watching the movie, and I just commented, "Oh, how nice! Today is a good day to watch the movie, like a random day." And we start to talk and share all the interests for the movie, for the real ship and the real passengers and the costumes and the props. And we bound immediately. And I was in United Kingdom for studying. And he invited me over to come here and meet him. And I did. And we instantly connect. We could not stop talking about Titanic. And that was a perfect match.
Yeah, true. And very cliche, the weekend he came here was on Valentine's weekend, but we really didn't plan it because of this. But it was an added bonus, so everything went very fast after this because we met online in halfway January 2015. Well, and as you all know, Valentine's weekend is halfway February. So then this is when we met.
So Titanic became your dating app.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very funny because somehow he saw my profile before, and I saw him his picture pass by a few times on some comments on Facebook, but never said something to each other. Suddenly, he took the initiative.
Yeah, because of the movie, he was watching the movie and said, "Wow, it's such a nice day to watch the movie." It was a random day.
Yeah.
And,
but Roberto, you had been a fan of Titanic prior to that. It wasn't the.
Yeah.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about the first time you saw the film. How old were you?
Well, I was 6. I went there with my family because if you had a parent, but back then, because my parents are from Brazil. So I was living there, and if you had a parent with you, you could just enter the cinema, even if the movie was rated for 13 or something like that. And I remember like one scene from Molly Brown on the lifeboat when she looked to the giant ship sinking, and then she says, "God Almighty," and I got that like a 6-year-old boy with that huge image on the cinema screen. And I kept that. And then, of course, back then it became a fever. Everyone was talking about Titanic, the children, the elderly, everyone. And also in school, it was like people, the children didn't want to talk about anything else, only Titanic. We would spend the entire day talking about Titanic during the breaks. We would just pretend that we are on the ship, on the sinking ship. Who is Jack? Who is Rose? Who is going to jump out of something to pretend to be on the ship? But as a child, you don't get to understand it. It was a real, like a horror
Tragedy.
A tragedy, yes. So slowly I started to become more aware of to separate the real thing and the fun. So with the years I became more like into the real ship, also with the movie, of course. And then I start collecting stuff like to get closer to the real ship somehow. And I thought that by the movie I could achieve this, having little pieces from the set or this kind of thing to just bound with the real history.
What was the first item? Because everybody remembers their first. What started you on the collecting journey? What made you say, God Almighty?
Framed plate.
And what's the story of the plate?
Well, I can't remember exactly, but I was like back then, like over 10 years ago, 15 or so. I was thinking like, I see something on the screen and I'm like, where is this now? They made for the film, but they made so many pieces. Where can I find this? Who has them? Then I started to search, and I was not familiar with eBay and auctions and this kind. So eventually I went to Facebook groups and talking with other people that were before me collecting already. And then I just found a guy that was selling a plate, and I got it, and I was happy because it was my first thing that I said, oh my God, this was on the movie. This was part of the movie that I liked so much.
And J. Peterman had a lot of that. I know you know this, but it was probably a little bit before your time. But I loved the J. Peterman catalog because they would always have a story by every. This is way before they were selling Titanic stuff, you know, beautiful dresses, sort of retro, very classic outfits with a story about a woman standing, you know, on a balcony in the south of France somewhere with a cigarette, and she'd be wearing this dress. It was a very, very clever piece of marketing, and you'd get this lovely sort of analog book, like a catalog, again before the internet, and it would arrive in the post like a magazine, and you would just read all the stories, and they were all watercolor drawings, images of what they were selling, which of course was hard because it wasn't actually what you were buying. They were just artistic impressions of these beautiful things. So Titanic, in order to because they didn't know they had spent $200 million, they were just happy to sell off. I mean, they even were selling the anchor, I think, and Rose's, you know, and some reproductions of the costumes and so forth. But I remember that just seeing this rather desperate attempt at recouping some of the money, but it sank J. Peterman. They actually didn't sell very much, because what you're talking about, which is what Titanic collecting has grown into, is that there wasn't this fever of I've got to have a piece of the film right now. That sort of evolved over the years, I think. And unfortunately, it did bankrupt J. Peterman, and they are no more.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of the props that they purchased to be resell on their catalogs, there was a moment that they just bankrupt or something. So there are lots of props that were not featured on the catalogs, but they had them. They were still selling over the phone and fax or something like that.
Faxes, so, yeah. Yes, those are things.
Yeah.
And Rolf, you're more of a historian, I believe. I'm obviously you're happy to be surrounded by these beautiful things, but tell us a little bit about your depth of knowledge of the ship and her history.
Well, it started at the age of 11, like 10, 11, I think. I remember being in school, and there was like a little library in the school, and then I could remember seeing like this very little decaying book about Titanic, and I can remember the cover of it. It seemed very, I don't know, dangerous. I don't know. As a child, you experience things different when you were an adult. And I read it, and I just became very fascinated about it. That's what I remember. And so I got some books with the help of my parents. And just after that, the movie came out. So it just fed into the interest that I already had before the movie. And I can remember sitting in a cinema as an 11-year-old with my mother and one of my friends, and I kept telling her, "Oh, this is because of like telling some historical facts as an 11-year-old boy." And she was like, "Shh, I'm trying to enjoy the movie."
Was it Titanic in particular, and her story, or for example, I had a similar path as many Titanic enthusiasts do. Mine also included other maritime disasters. So I wasn't strictly Titanic. I was an equal opportunity, Andrea Doria, Lusitania kind of guy. Where did it lead you? Obviously, it led to your partnership, but where did your love of the Titanic story lead you initially? Did you have other maritime interests?
At the time, no, but now, yes, because like there are some of these YouTube profiles that have these real-time sinking videos, or the Honor and Glory project, which I saw some renders of in the Ship of Dreams documentary as well, and but also Lusitania. I saw the Wilhelm Gustloff, which was a ship that was sunken in the Second World War with estimated death of 10,000 people. This is all kind of things you kind of get interested.
Like tragedy.
Tragedies and how it happened, and but also things like 9/11. This is has nothing to do with ships, but it's tragedy. Like I think
history. It's history.
Yeah, I think 9/11 is like everyone still remembers who was alive in 22 years ago. It's been already. Where he was at the moment. And I think back in 1912, a lot of people knew where they were when they heard the Titanic sank. So
I think it was also we've talked about this a lot too, the hubris of the Edwardian era and the industrial age, and just the way that human minds were developing this incredible ship that had never been built before, that was unsinkable. And it almost, from that moment, she was doomed, because we wouldn't be talking about her if she'd sailed plainly into New York, and all of those people's lives were intact or had been not lost. We are somehow morbidly attracted to tragedies because they make history, and you don't make history always by succeeding. It often, as you've just pointed out, it's the tragedy and the loss that gets our attention and continues to get our attention. And if you think how many people were on board, that there's a lot of stories.
And the diversity of, I mean, Alexandra and I were speaking before we began recording this podcast about how we so enjoy the diversity of our guests on Titanic Talk, whether it's a historian or an actor or a fan or all of the above. The diversity is what's so much fun. But on a historical scale, you talk about 9/11 or you talk about Titanic or anything like that, it's the diversity of the cast of characters. Anybody could have been on that ship. There was first class, there was third class, there was passengers, there was crew, and I think we do put ourselves into that. Have you ever stopped to think about where would you have been had you been on the Titanic? Would you have been a passenger? Would you have been a crew member? Do you think you could have survived? The commonality, the universality of the passengers on board. Do you ever let yourself fantasize about that?
Well, for me, I feel more like nowadays, I would think like a survival instinct. But back then you had that women and children first, and all the different era, different way of thinking. But I think that as a human being, you have like a survival instinct. You see something is coming, facing to you like a sinking ship that you don't know what to do. Then suddenly they say women and children first, and there is not enough boats for everyone. Then you really feel like I need to somehow save myself, but you don't know how.
Put on a headscarf and grab a child.
I was just going to say, grab a dress and a baby. You'll be fine.
But I also think we think with the mindset of now. Like we live in a society that is very, how do you say, individualized. I don't know if it's the right term in English. Like back in the day, gentlemen were gentlemen. I've heard of examples of men sitting in lifeboats, but went off of the lifeboat so that a child or a woman could take its place. This is something that I think, right, we live in a
more equality nowadays.
Yeah, now it's more like, I feel sad for you, but it's my life. I will save my own life. Like this, you know, it's more like.
But also the lifeboats went out. They weren't full. A lot of them went out half empty, and you know the lack of organization or or drill to know what to do. I'm sure the officers had some knowledge of it, but it was not a priority to make. As we know, there weren't enough lifeboats, but they could have, if people had been more urgent, they probably could have filled those lifeboats a little more.
Well, and Alexandra, you always mention the hubris involved as well. Just even the thinking that, oh, we're not really going to sink. Maybe we'll get in the boats, we'll go down there for a while, and then we'll get back on. Or the line in the film when Thomas Andrews says to Ismay, "I assure you, she will sink, or she can sink." You know, it's there was a denial, and it was a societal thing. It wasn't just that the gentlemen were honorable enough to let the ladies go. There was an invincibility factor, I think.
And I also think, like, I can remember one of the videos with Ken Marshall in it. He remembered, like, on the movie set. Maybe you remember, Alexandra, as well. When the ship, when you saw it when it was sinking, you saw it from a distance. You could clearly see, yeah, it's definitely sinking. But if you were on the deck, that was not. Yeah, that was a bit like it was sinking. But after a while, you become accustomed to it. And it doesn't feel that the ship is sinking anymore.
Or it may be listing because she's taken on water, but nobody except Thomas Andrews and Captain Smith and so forth truly understood the physics of it. And he very kindly in that scene explains to the audience on the blueprint, it's this, and this. But yes, I'm sure you just thought it was listing. What I love about the power of this movie is that it gets interesting for me just when the iceberg hits. Now it's like a ticking clock, so you know that, but it's sort of the water's gently coming up to start with, and there's pockets of doing this, but it builds and it builds, and the water starts to become more aggressive and stronger, and as the boat tips, there must have been a point where this is the end. But I think it wasn't until that very end that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Prior to that, people were like, we'll just go out in the boats and we'll come back in a minute, and then we'll limp into New York. I think
that's what I like.
Hindsight for us is very, and history is very clear. But when you're in these, I don't know how many, like if you've been in a car crash or you've been, your brain just keeps denying that there's this huge danger. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Also on the real ship, it was like the ship was damaged just a bit more than it could really handle. So there was a time in the sinking about, I think it was between 20 past midnight and 20 past 1, that the ship barely sunk in that time. So it almost reached I don't know what the English equilibrium.
Or it almost became horizontal.
Yeah, it almost became buoyant in a way that it didn't sink any further. And then, but it just was, so the pumps that pump out the water they were just about able to pump out the water at the same rate that it came in. But the damage was just a bit too much. So there was like 1 hour that it really felt like the ship was stable, wasn't sinking any further. If you see those real-time sinking videos, you can really see that between 20 past 12 and 20 past 1, the ship is barely sinking. The water is until the first row of portholes below the front part of the ship, and it barely sinks in that
Because
time.
at any tragedy, you cannot predict what will happen.
No.
We thought because we used to watch the movie over and over, so we know what happens. So documentaries, we know how it happens. But back then, people could not just think, oh, this is going to happen at 1 a.m., at 2 a.m., then it will. People were just lost. What can I do? Where can I go? Should I stay? Should I go? Should I? You know, it's
hindsight. In hindsight,
Titanic being so integral to your relationship, I mean, it was part of your relationship's DNA. How does it fit into your relationship now? I mean, collecting a few things. You went to London to see the screening with the live orchestra. What role does Titanic play in your day-to-day lives now?
Well, it's kind of funny because as a real thing is like we are always trying to learn something new, but connecting to the movie, for example, we tend to quote the movie daily. For any sort of situation, like a random situation, we will quote the movie. Like I will go out somewhere, and then when I'm about to leave, I will say, I would like a cup of tea when I return. Yeah,
Oh, tell us some more. Oh, tell us some more. This is
like we go to a restaurant and then someone brings the bill and then we are like Lorelai, you have to pay for that, you know. It's kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, or if we are in a certain situation that we're like, yeah, right. He's like charmed, I'm sure.
Yeah, so always
Tell me you don't retire for brandy and cigars after dinner.
Yeah. Always, even if it sounds like repetitive, for us, it's always fun. Because we love the movie so much that for us, every day, if you quote the same thing every day, it's fun. We always laugh and we always enjoy it.
And we even imitate the look that Alexandra gave to Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you got the eyebrow? Haven't seen anything like that in first class before. Yeah. A little bit of rough trade. He washes up nice, doesn't he? Yes.
I love that 6-year-old you was struck by the line "God Almighty," and now, but I'll remember that the next time I see the film because it is such a memorable moment, and Kathy Bates did such a marvelous job of acting to her green screen or whatever she was acting to imagine the sight that Molly Brown must have actually witnessed, and I thought God Almighty was perfect and it was perfectly acted. So it's funny that struck you at such a young age.
The only thing that I have in my mind from the first time that I saw the film, it's that this little 2-3 seconds. I have it in my mind like, oh God, I remember this. I remember people sitting next to me and the screen in front of me and watching this as a 6-year-old. So just
well, for me, if you're interested to know what struck me was actually the trailer. So imagine I was there for 2 months. Lots of people were there for many months, but you didn't know what the actors that you could congregate with in the bar of the Real Del Mar Hotel in Rosarito Beach, drinking lots of margaritas. You knew what everyone played. You know, Johan Griffith was the Officer Lowe, and there's Brian Walsh with the pipes from Third Class. But we weren't actually watching people do their parts and their scenes if you weren't in the scene as well. So for me, it was fascinating to see all of this stuff that had been filmed that I hadn't experienced. And I remember watching the trailer and seeing the back of the boat and the 3 propellers and the little lifeboat in front. The scale of that just blew my mind. And I forgot I had been in the film. I was like, I want to see this movie. I want to see. That is extraordinary. And then when we were at the cast and crew screening, I just made a bit of a fool of myself in front of James Cameron. I wanted my photograph taken with him, and my friend said he'd come and snap a picture of us. And I was going to be really cool and calm, and I just couldn't. I just was like, James Cameron, what have you done? This is amazing. Because I just hadn't, even being in the film and even being in the first class dining room and seeing all of that detail and all of that size and everything to do with the details they had incorporated. Nothing prepared me for seeing the film on the screen, if that helps you at all. That even for those of us in it, we were all blown away.
Do you guys have a favorite scene or character or moment? Is there something in particular that, you know, other than Molly Brown, or maybe it is Molly Brown, but is there a soulmate character for you?
Visually, I chose that scene that they are saying the D-deck grand staircase. That Rose starts to point to people. Oh, there's the Count of Rods and this kind of thing. Because I don't know, I like so much the glam of it. You know, like the lights, the costumes, the brightness, the soundtrack. And once you watch those few seconds, maybe 1 2 minutes, it's like those are the real people from the ship. She's pointing the real passengers, and then you have kind of a connection that, oh my God, and they, like the Duff Gordon, they are so look-alike the real ones. And it's really amazing that they achieved this in a movie. So
I wanted more of the Strausses. I needed more of the Strausses. How about you? Do you have a favorite?
Me, I think the scene when it starts near my God, the violence until the moment the ship's completely away. Because I just think I never make it a habit to watch the movie at home. I always say it's for special occasions like the 25th anniversary in the cinema and the Titanic Live in the Royal Albert Hall. And I can genuinely say every time I still watch the movie, between the moment the violence starts, the water comes into the bridge with Captain Smith and ship goes up, and I'm always very moved by it. Very moved. And I think the scene that I strangely always have to laugh, I don't know why, is the scene that Ruth is being lowered away with the lifeboat, and then she is like this little chihuahua trying to force her daughter Rose to stay and come into the lifeboat, and she is like this little chihuahua barking, you know.
The boat.
And then she like, oh wait, and then you can see the little deck like go in. I always have to laugh when I see that scene. And while my mother watches it, she is like, this is the last time she sees her daughter. This must be devastating to her. And I'm like, oh God, it's so funny.
But she does embody, I think that whole character does embody the self-entitled nature of that class of woman, because she's lost all her money, so she's having to scrabble around and stay, you know, maintain this lifestyle to which she was accustomed, and she is desperate. She's desperate, and she's sort of that typical middle class Edwardian who really is not thinking about anything but herself, and I think Ruth is the epitome of that person and represented in her entirety.
Yeah, I think that actually Ruth, people tend to see her like a villain, but I think that she was just acting according to the society back then. She was trying to maintain the position that she had as part of the society that she always knew. So she didn't.
And had no other opportunity.
Would you have her be a seamstress?
Yes. Oh, you want me to be a seamstress? This is a quote that we often think. Like, do you want me to be a seamstress? And then I'm like, yes, yes. I want to kill you.
Well,
be a seamstress.
We tend to say sometimes like she could have worked with Lucille, her great friend.
Yeah, as a seamstress.
So funny. Have you guys taken a cruise together, or would that just be too painful?
Not yet, but what we have done is we've been to the White Swan Hotel in Titanic, which has almost the entire lounge of the RMS Olympic, Titanic's sister ship, and we went there for 3 nights, 4 days, I think, and
we just had a kind of a connection with the lounge from the movie. So we thought like, oh my God, this scene from the movie.
Yeah,
it's like we could just portray it here on this lounge, because it was the same.
It's the scene with the girl with the napkin, you know. Yeah, that's the lounge, and then to see the real room, because all the pictures that are from the lounge are the ones from Olympic. To see the real room, to see the real details in the panels and paneling and the doors, and
like getting close to the movie set.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Being part of it,
it's beautiful. And it's just beautiful. Because I know also some Harry Potter scenes were shot around that area, but we didn't do the hotel at all. We were just
Can we just sleep here? I'll just sleep in this chair. I'll be fine.
Yeah, really. And they allowed us after dinner to just stay in the room and just look around and soak up history.
Oh.
It was beautiful.
Show us some of your collection there, Roberto. Is that necklace? Is that that's a Duff Gordon necklace? Isn't that Lady Duff Gordon's necklace?
Yeah,
As worn by Rosalind Ayres.
Yeah, I chose things that has a meaning for me rather than this is more valuable.
Yes, of course.
My favorite piece of jewelry that I have is this one, despite having yours here nearby.
Oh, that's my choker.
Yeah.
That's my choker.
Oh
my gosh, that's so amazing. And when, what else? Oh, that's my little brooch. Is that ebony or is it probably what this is, which is yes, I have a tree of life with jet from Whitby, where they exhume fossilized trees from the beach. And how do you, okay, so here we go. You have that little brooch of mine. Did it say from Titanic or has it been used in other movies? Because I know these prop houses rent things out all the time.
Yes, because I purchased the costume archives from the film that you can get like detailed information, that I was able to source many of the pieces. And this piece here was also used on a room with a view.
With Helena Bonham Carter. It was one of her first films.
Yeah, that movie.
You see, I didn't know that. That is so fascinating that even a prop has a movie film history if of course it's in a prop house for rental.
That brooch needs its own IMDb page.
Yeah,
got 2 credits already. And I saw you taking a sip of water from. Do you drink out of your Titanic cups? Oh no, that's just a ring. I thought you were sipping from a champagne goblet.
This one I chose because this is one of the Peterman ones, like a.
Oh, it is a J. Peterman.
No. I mean, it's the one that was used to the Make It Count toast. That was supposed to be featured in the Peterman catalog, but the previous collector got over the phone, so he got the cover from Peterman, the stainless blue one with the paperwork. It was one of 8 that was going to be featured on the catalog, so eventually they bankrupt. So sadly, it was not on it.
But it's in somebody's hand of somebody sitting at that table toasting Make It Count.
Yes, because what I have, the other glassware that I have is from Tudor Crystals, the company that made for the film. But the real crystalware from the film that was used on the film is quite rare to source these days. And this is like the only champagne saucer that I've seen like in 10 years, from the film, not from Tudor Crystal. So it's
and do you keep these things out, or do you ordinarily have them under lock and key? Are they insured? They have a special room?
But overall, I keep everything on storage. Nothing is really like on display, unless it's like framed stuff that we tend to use, like a piece of art or something like that. Instead of a poster, we have a framed plate.
But we do drink some beers and wines from the ones from Tudor Crystals.
Good. You should. Things are meant to be used, I think.
Yeah, true. We really make it count.
Perfect. What a perfect way to end. Make it count. You do make it count.
Make it count.
Making it count for 8 years or more, of course.
Where does the time go?
Well, I have a feeling that like Isidore and Ida Strauss, you two will never get into separate boats. You will always stay in the same boat together.
Where you go, I go.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Roberto, for suggesting this chat. It's been wonderful.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review. And if you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, hit the subscribe button. For information on where you can see Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, go to shipofdreamsfilm.com. Titanic Talk is a production of Ship of Dreams Film Limited.